All right. What is up, guys? I'm going to play this video on there. What is up? I am going to do a video, obviously, as you're watching this. And this might be my longest video yet. And you might be thinking, how the fuck is that possible? You make long videos talking about a bunch of random shit. Well, this is going to be what I will hope to achieve is a comprehensive PvP guide. And by that, I mean pretty much I'm going to attempt to cover literally everything I can think of. Everything, every single aspect of a fight, I'm going to try to cover. And the things I'm going to cover here, I might forget some things. I think this must have. I'm going to cover engaging, spacing, disengaging, playing slow, playing fast, front to backing, back to fronting, identifying strengths of your team comp and the enemy team comp, weaknesses, team comps and generals, and I'm going to touch on positioning a bit. I did just make a video about this in like my tips video like a minute ago, but I will touch on it a bit. So I'm going to try to cover all of this. I don't know which order I'm going to do it in. Honestly, haven't decided. But anyways, we fucking ball. Let's get into this. So, I guess I'll start with team comps. I think team comps is probably the best way to segue into this because depending on your team comps can change. And also, as a not a warning, I guess you could say, but as like a fucking little piece of advice, I am a fighter player. I play fighter and I play barbarian. I play frontline characters. So what that means is most of what I'm going to talk about is going to come from a frontline point of view. I will try to mention things if I remember to on like, backliners or whatever. But for the most part, keep in mind that I'm talking genuinely or generally from a frontline POV. That's just how it works. I really wish I could mute this stream because it's going to mess with me hearing my own voice. But whatever. I don't want to mute the audio for you guys so you can like listen to it and watch it or whatever. Actually, no, fuck it. You're just gonna watch the gameplay and you're gonna listen to me because listening to this is tilting me. But anyways, back to what I was saying. Team comps. So to start off with, the best thing to do for PvP, as I've mentioned this before in other videos, is build a strong team comp. What does that mean? A strong team comp basically just means one that gives you the best chance of winning PvP fights. PvE as well if you're trying to do that, but PvE is much easier and you can pretty much PvE with any comp as long as you know how to do it properly. That includes bossing, normal mob clear, whatever. So, how do you build a strong team comp? Well, you could follow the traditional formula that has been, you know, crafted through the ages of a support, a frontline, and a damage dealer. So, tank, healer, DPS, for example. But I mean, healer, cleric, or bard. If you follow that formula, though, of tank, DPS, support, pretty hard to go wrong. So, let's fit and fill. You see what we're playing here in this video. Cleric, actually, I think he's playing bard. He's playing bard here. Bard, fighter, wizard. Wizard's DPS, fighter's tank, or frontline, bard support. If you follow that formula, your team comp at least will be decent, if not great. But it pretty much cannot be bad. You can combine almost any three characters like this and make a solid team comp. That's just how it works. How they play might be a bit different, but generally speaking, that is going to be the best one, or that is going to be the best way to do it. If you want to get a bit more specifics and play like the best of the best, that's something else not like really hard to figure it out. Just play cleric, wizard, and then either fighter or barbarian. Boom, playing the best comp in the game. How it is. So like now that you've crafted your team comp, and we're gonna talk about the one in the video or I'm not talking about this one. I'm talking about like fighter, wizard, cleric because that's my most common team comp. It's when I know the best and when I can speak on the best. So once you've built your team comp, identify the strengths and the weaknesses that you have for that comp. So for example, let's look at fighter, wizard, cleric. Like I've said, the strengths are, it's pretty all around comp. You can deal with most things. Fighter deals with physical threats, and the only thing they can't really kill is other fighters. Wizard deals with fighters. Cleric, just keeps fighter alive, keeps him in the fight longer. The comp is a bit slower than if you were to play a barbarian or something else. That's like, a faster character than fighter, because fighter is generally relatively slow unless you're insanely geared with a ton of agi and move speed stuff. So you are a bit slow, so you are very susceptible to being kited in the front line. And if you get kited, your team can't go past you. Like if your wizard's frontlining, it's really easy for him to die. And because you are running a wizard, your backline is very easy to die to rangers. If you get out of position because they can just shoot your wizard to kill him. And if your wizard dies, which is pretty easy, then you're in a really bad spot. Something else that is actually really, really good against not even just specifically this, but this style of team comp is rogues. Because the only way to check for rogue really with this team comp is if your wizard's spamming light orbs. If you don't and a rogue pops out, they can kill your wizard. And if that happens, pretty bad spot you're in. So rogues are very good against this style of comp, and like I said, that ties into looking at your weaknesses. Your weaknesses are things like rangers and things like rogues. So you want to play around that. One, for example, is if it's a ranger, you don't want to fight a ranger in a spot that they're great in, like a long hallway or an open area where they have high ground on you. You can't easily get to them. They can just kind of free fire. Not a good spot to fight a ranger. Rogues, if you see it, rogues, you can't necessarily prepare for them all the time. However, for example, one, if you see a team load in and you see a rogue on their team, then you know that there's one there. Or if you see another team that's playing really weird, for example, they're like they're trying to bait. You only see two of them, and they're trying to like kind of back off and bait you when they have no reason to. There could be a rogue. Just be wary of that kind of things you have to play around. If you play around your strengths and weaknesses, then in a fantastic position, you're already much better off. And then that's kind of like a quick version of team comp, like if considering like you because team comp, it's really important, and but I don't think it's like super complicated, right? Learning what each character does is like the most important thing for a team comp, because then once again, you can, if you know what your characters do and you know what other characters do, you know how to identify your strengths and weaknesses. If you just pick three characters and you have no idea about any of the characters, then you have no idea what they do. You're not going to know what they do or what they do good and what they do poorly. So that just comes down to playing the game and understanding characters, or researching on it. All right, on to the more actual like the real aspects of a fight. Engaging. Engaging is something that I think is really easy to mess up, and it's probably the number one skill a frontline player needs to have. So basically, engaging in a very simple sense is just starting a fight, right? Like if I sprint at them, that's my engage. If I get haste invised in, that's an engage. Crossbow shot, that's in a way, that's still kind of an engage. So, how do you do it in a way that's going to be good? Well, the first thing you need to consider whenever you're starting a fight is, should I start this fight? Is this a fight I want to take? Because that is one thing you always want to consider. Do you want to take this fight? And if you do, then are my teammates ready to take this fight? Are they in a spot to do it? Do they have spells? Are they healed up? Am I healed up? What tools do I have available to me? What tools do they have available to them? Where's the other team? Are they ready for us to fight them? Are we in a good position to fight them? Like, mobs around us, the room, the zone. So many of these things you have to consider. I mean, I can't really go over each single thing in detail. Like I said, I'm just going to mention these really quick. One, like for, to start off with the zone. You never want to be like, one, you don't want to chase people. Like if they're out of the zone and they're forced to push into you, you don't want to run out the zone to fight them, because why would you do that? Even if you can, you don't necessarily need to. Just play the zone on them, make them push into you. They're going to be losing HP constantly from zone damage. You have no reason to make that engage. It's not a good one. Even if you can, you don't need to. Then another thing, you gotta watch out for mobs. You don't want to be, for example, if let's say you step in a room, like I don't have a screenshot of it, but the room that has the raised caskets, that's like usually on the outsides of the map. A team spawns on the other side. You're on one side. You don't want to run through the room and pull a bunch of mobs and then try to fight them, because you have a whole mob train behind you. Your teammates are trying to deal with that. You're trying to deal with that. So now instead of just a 3v3, it's like a 3v fucking 10, because there's 7 skeletons aggro to you. Something you want to consider. Then the most important thing potentially is, are your teammates ready for the fight? Because even if you're in position, because this is something a lot of frontline players fail to do, they tunnel vision really hard. Because when you're in the front, all you can see is what's in front of you. You don't have eyes to see what's behind you. You can't see what your teammates are doing. You can't see if they're ready for that fight or not. This comes down to communication, which I will try to touch on a bit later. If I remember it, probably won't. I'm stupid. I forget. So you just need to ask your teammates, like, know what they have available to them. Because, like I said, while you only see what's in front of you, you need to know everything. That is one of the key aspects, is the frontliner is generally the person who is going to be starting these fights, calling fights, getting ready. Your team will follow behind you. If in essence, you are the spearhead of your team's formation. Anything your team does, you lead. So you need that information to make your correct calls. Which, like I said, this could be different for each team. Like for example, somebody else could be the shot caller, tell you when to engage, tell you when to back off, that type of thing, which isn't wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But generally, the frontliner is going to be the one doing it, because you're the one with the ability to start fights. All right. Honestly, I completely just forgot what I was saying. I'm not even going to lie. I got so far off, I completely forgot. But communication, my bad. Anyway, ask your teammates what they have available. Keep in mind what they have available. For example, if you just did a fight, put a campfire down, get your spells back, be ready for another fight. If your cleric said to use a bunch of heals on you for like PvE damage or whatever you take in poke, ask him the type of spells he has. Like make sure you have the information available to you to know what resources your team has. If they have no heals, you want to know that. No spells, they want to know that. No ammo, you want to know that. Whatever they don't have, no cooldowns. Once again, you want to know that. All those are things that you need to consider when you're starting a fight, because that's one thing about engaging is when you get to that point where it's like, a really tight window, it's like I either engage now or I don't engage. Because they can be out of position 1 second and then be back in position the next second, and that's your window to engage gone because you had to hesitate or because you would ask your teammates stuff like, do you have spells? Do you have heals? Do you have whatever it may be? And because you had to ask that, you lost your chance to engage. Also, little, segue. This is clearly about trios. I'm not really talking about solos here, so this is more about trios and solos. Just keep that in mind. Some of the things I say will be applicable to solos as well, but mostly this is going to be about trios. But anyways, back to what I was saying. But you don't want to lose your window to engage because you didn't have the information from your team because you didn't ask them or they didn't tell you. So you always want to try to have that information to make the best decision possible. And something else that this isn't as whenever you play with people you've played with for a long time, it's building trust with your teammates. You need to trust that if you go in, they're going to follow you and they need to trust your engages. Because let's say, for example, this is, well, honestly, I'll say the example in a second, but this is one of the biggest mistakes teams make. And this isn't even just a darker thing. This is any game, MOBAs, FPS games, everything. Is if one player makes a call and another player doubts it and they don't commit to that call, you have two people doing split things. So automatically, it doesn't matter if the original call was bad or not. It will be bad because only, that guy or only whoever did it, but somebody decided not to. It is better for everybody to commit on a bad call than it is for half to not do it, half to do it. Because the thing is, if you commit on a bad call and then you fuck up for it, like, okay, that sucks. It happens. You know it was a bad call. However, there's no guarantee it was until it happens. If you don't do it, like if I call, hey guys, let's engage here, and I run in and they're like, no, and I'm already in, or they're like, no, that was a bad engage, and they never went in with me, and I just die, we'll never know it was a bad engage because we never tried it. We were never there. And so what could have been a good engage that I'm calling now has become bad because I'm in there by myself and I'm overextended because my team didn't come with me. And so that's one thing is just whenever you are building up a team, because this is like, I'm trying to give you guys advice here to get good at the game. Like, this isn't just like, this is trying to help you, build a good team, become a better player, try to like grind leaderboards later if that's something you're into. But just try to build trust between your team and just try to get to that point where, I'll fast forward this next fight. Try to get to that point where you guys are all confident in each other and you know what to do. And that if one of you makes a call, all of you are willing to follow it. Because like I said, and it's not easy. Like sometimes you're gonna mess up, and that's like it's people aren't gonna follow calls or whatever. It's just not gonna happen. I mean, people mess up, mistakes are made, stuff like that happens. It is what it is. But you want to get to the point where more often than not they trust your calls. And like I said, if it goes bad, talk about it after the game. It happens. People make mistakes. No one's perfect. But it is, like I said, it is better to offer all of you to int on that one call than it is for you guys to split up on multiple calls. Because then it just becomes a complete shit show. All right. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of engaging. There are like a couple more things I could go over, but mostly what I've covered here is like, it's not completely surface level, but for the most part, I've covered a bunch of good information on it. If you have any things else you'd like to say, feel free to mention it below. On to the next thing, disengaging, which is, obviously the other side of it. So disengaging, it's not quite as complicated as engaging. The one thing that I think you really, really need to know is, do you have the ability to disengage? Because sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're in a fight and you are in it. If you try to run, all that's going to happen is they're going to kill you when you're running away. You just need to know at what point during a fight, okay, we need to disengage here, or it's too late, we just have to fight. The best time this is usually if you engage a fight, you won't need to then disengage. How it's usually going to happen if you're engaged on, if another team engages on you. And if that happens, you just need to know, like I said, do we have the ability to disengage, or can we fight this? And if you have the ability to disengage, how do we do it? Well, as a frontliner, generally you're going to be the last person out. You never want to run and like block your teammates because one, if you like, let's say there's a ranger shooting you, a crossbow, a wizard, whatever it is, if you get shot, you're probably not gonna die even to one or two spells because you can block them. You're definitely not gonna die to arrows. However, if I run through that door first and my wizard's behind me, he can die to two arrows pretty damn easily. So you always want to try to make sure your teammates are out. That's the thing is, whenever you are playing a frontliner, your life is directly tied to the life of your team. So if you need to sacrifice yourself, sometimes you just got to do it. Because it is much better for you to die and them to live than for them to die and you to live. Unless you're just selfish, which case, GigaChad, do what you got to do. But like I said, and honestly, there's not really many tips I can give you here. This kind of just comes down to more game knowledge and playing and understanding. Like, understanding your kits versus their kits, damage done, the overall position of the fight. This is very, very situational, and, it's not going to be the same every time. Like I said, very much depends on just how that fight's going. But like if you get a chance and you're like backed up, you know that you've taken more damage than them. They have way more spells. They're way more geared. Yeah, you're probably gonna want to back up and try to disengage, especially if they back off and give you the chance to. However, if they're actively chasing you, sometimes your best play is to just try to make like a Hail Mary play and kill them. For example, one thing you can do, like let's say you're fighting more geared players, is literally just try to all throw yourself at one person. Because even if you're able to take down one person, they could panic, they make them panic, and they can make a mistake, and you guys could if maybe only one of you dies and two of you will live. But if that happens, you're in a much better spot. Because even geared players can die. Even if it's hard to kill them, they can die. But yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up for disengaging. Like I said, nothing's really too complicated about that. It's really hard to kind of explain it. But I'm sure you guys will figure it out. It's just as you play, I just want to try to give you general tips for this stuff. Spacing. Spacing is something I wanted to make a video on this on its own and have like footage of it, but honestly, I'm just too lazy and I'm not going to do it. So I will try to find a little point in this VOD where I can actually show it. Not here. I think it was this last game we played, so I should be able to find it. I have to check. This could be. I don't actually know if it was the last game or not. I'm starting to think it wasn't. It was the game before. Oh yeah, I think it was right there. Yeah, it's right through here. I say it's right through here. Okay, yeah. So so he calls. There's a team here. One, I'm trying to clear this PvE because you don't ever want to be in a fight where you have PvE. So I'm just trying to clear this, even though there's a barb running at me. And then you see here, he's got a felling axe. So a felling axe is one of the most important weapons to space because of how short the range is and how long the recovery is. So you see, I block this one here, and then watch what I do here. He's out of range. You try to run up to bait an attack because he makes him think I'm going to try to attack him. You bait the attack and immediately turn and jump away. So now he's swinging in a position where he can't possibly hit me. He has this long recovery, and look, I do it again. You try to put them in a position where they think they can attack you because you would be in your range, and when they swing, you back off. This is really, really good. Like felling axe in particular, this is perfect for. And unless a player is really good, they're not gonna they're not gonna know what to do. Also, that block saved my life. So I'm gonna go. Blocking is very useful. Like this guy, like thing is, and this doesn't always work. If a player is intelligent, it's much, much harder to space them. For example, if this guy literally just holds left click, I'm dead, right? Like I'm literally backed into a corner right here. The door is closed behind me. If he just holds left click, I'm dead. He was also 1 HP though, so maybe that's why he was doing it. But that right there is pretty much the essence of spacing. What you have to do is you just have to try to make them think you are going to move in their range. And if they think that and they swing, it gives you a chance to then swing after or do whatever you want to do. Because sometimes, even if you space their attack properly, that doesn't mean you get a chance to hit them because they can hit you with the follow-up. Like, that happens sometimes. So, spacing really just comes down to understanding each individual weapon, knowing the reach of weapons, swing speed, hit slow, all that type of stuff comes into spacing. And you really just need to know if they swing, at what distance do I need to be away to get my swing in and back off before they can hit me again? That is like the most important thing to know, and it's also it's really hard to. It's not something you can just pick up in a day. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of playing to do that. That's how it works. All right. On from spacing. Now I'm going to move on to some. These aren't like These are more like concepts, really, or like play styles that you can do. For example, playing slow. You say, what does that mean? Well, it's exactly what it says. You just play the fight slow. You don't rush it. This could mean you are backed off poking, like with a ranger or a crossbow. You're sitting there poking. You're not rushing in. You're letting your teammates hit them, whatever that may be. Because after this, I'll talk about playing fast. But playing slow, really just what this means is, or the reason I'm talking about it, the reason it's so important, excuse me, is because sometimes you can't win a straight up fight. So therefore, you have to play it slow, or your teammates need to heal, or whatever it may be. But you don't have the capacity to just run in and beat them. Or you don't want to do it because even if you do, there are consequences that you could suffer after, like getting third partied. This is really, really good in the situation of there are three people there. If you or three teams. If you see two teams, you don't want to just rush at one and kill them, even if you can, because then the other team's going to rush you and then you're fighting at a disadvantage. So your choice is to play it slow. This could mean you're waiting on zone, you're waiting to see if something happens, they make a mistake, whether or not you even should fight it. There are a lot of aspects that go in here, but this is something really key that you want to know. Is just because you see a team doesn't mean you have to run at them. You can sit there, like, stake it out, decide what the best play is, because you're not always going to know what the best thing to do is. But that's why you have three people. You can talk about it with your teammates. What do we do here? What do you guys think we should do here? Should we fight? Should we back off? And this is really, like I said, it's also really nice with Rangers because Rangers have good poke. You can look to poke the enemy team, get them to waste spells if they have cleric healing, or just get them lower before you decide to actually rush in and engage the fight to start it off. So that's where playing slow really comes in. It's really good with certain things, not as good with others. Like, for example, if you're playing like Buff Ball Barbarian, you're probably not playing slow. Just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, right? Like, that whole comp's about playing fast. And that moves on to my next thing, which is playing fast. And playing fast is completely opposite of everything I just mentioned. It's you see them, and you just fucking run in. You just get in there, and you fucking kill them. You just sprint in, do the fight as fast as possible. And you might say, like, oh, why would you ever want to do that? Well, there are a couple good examples. One, let's say there's two teams staring at each other, and the fucking zone's closing on you, and there's only 3 portals. And your choice is either we fight them now or we all die to zone. And you don't want to die to zone with them. So your only choice is to play that fight fast, whether it's advantageous to you or not. It's really sometimes you just have no choice. So pretty much what this means is you just want to try to get an engage as fast as possible. It doesn't necessarily mean you absolutely have to sprint at them the second you see them, but you are trying to look for a fight ASAP. Like, you're not sitting back doing poke. You're not like, slowly like trying to get your stuff back. You are trying to get in as fast as possible because you are on a time crunch. Another really good example of why this is useful is if you know there's teams nearby, but you have no choice. Like, let's say, for example, I'm pushing and I have to push through a team because I either, I'd have to run through the zone or some other reason. I'd have to push through them, but I know there's another team nearby. Sometimes you just want to run through that team and kill them as fast as possible so you can then reset as fast as possible and get ready for the next fight. That is a really great example of when you have to do this. Or if your team comp is just based around playing fast, like I mentioned with Buff Ball Barbarian, that whole comp is designed to play fast. It is designed to instantly win the fight because if you don't, then your team comp falls off. That's a really good example of why, if you guys remember, Barbarian, Wizard, Bard was played a lot. That was the epitome of a play fast comp. Because if you didn't play fast and went off an engage, your team comp was really, really bad because then you had no support and you had no like sustain in a fight or no longevity. Team comps that are really good at playing slow, however, are the complete opposite. You have a lot of longevity, you have good sustain, you have good, poke, DPS, or damage over time. All those things are very good. It's pretty much comps that want to play slow and comps that want to play fast are usually the complete opposite. And generally speaking, they're good against each other, which is kind of funny, but in a way. Because if you play slow against a comp that wants to play fast, if you play it correctly, you could beat them. However, if you play fast and you play it better and the team's trying to play slow, you can beat them. A really good example is, think of Fighter Ranger Cleric whenever Earthquake was meta. Fighter Ranger Cleric is a play slow comp. You want to bait them into you, catch them in your Earthquake, kill them like that. So if you could do that to the Barbarian team, then you could kill them really easily. However, if they were able to get past your Earthquake and get to you, you're fucked. So that's about it is. And then my last two things I want to talk about are front to back and back to fronting. These might be foreign concepts to you if you're not like a MOBA player or anything. So front to backing, literally what this means is you play the front or play the fight from the front to the back. So that means you kill the person at the front of the fight, and then you move to the back of the fight. So basically, you kill the frontliner first. And then back to front, it's complete opposite. Kill the backline first. So this comes in, once again, knowing when you're able to do this, knowing when you have the capacity to front to back. Generally, the only time this is doable is if one, you can out DPS their heals, two, you have no choice because you can't get to anything but the front line, or three, they just don't have a healer at all. So they have no sustain for their frontliner. If any of those three, like, scenarios are there, then, that's your best play, or, perhaps your only play. And literally, you kill the frontliner, and if you kill the frontliner, then you have free access to their backline. And especially if there are only certain comps that can do this. Most comps don't really have the capacity to do it. You need a lot of damage to do it, and it depends on what their frontliner is. For example, if your team's like fighter ranger, you're not gonna be able to front to back. That's just not gonna happen. You like fight against another fighter. Excuse me, I should have said that. Fighter ranger against another fighter. You're not gonna be able to kill their fighter in a way that matters. You're just gonna be sitting there while the enemy team shoots your backline, and you're gonna be losing the fight. However, if it's like a barbarian, then you can do it. Or if you have a wizard fighter on another fighter, you can do that as well. But like I said, this comes down to team comp really hard. You need to know your team comp, know whether or not you can play it. Like I mentioned earlier, strengths and weaknesses, that's one of the main things that you want to consider. And that's, like I said, that's why I wanted to go over team comps at first, is because your team comp that you play really decides how you're gonna play the game. It's gonna decide the way you should play the game. But yeah, so front to backing, it's a pretty simple concept. You just have to decide whether or not you actually have the ability to do it. Can I kill the front line fast enough to make it worth it to ignore their back line? And then back to fronting, complete opposite. This is what rogues normally do: is they will kill the back line before the front line. You pretty much you cut the front line off from their support, so the fighter off from the cleric, barb off from the cleric, or from the wizard, or whatever. So they have no help, and then you just can whittle them down because once their support's eliminated, it's really really easy, right? And if you've ever played like Overwatch, for example, this is something that you can do there. Like, if you kill the enemy healer, then the tank will die. That's just how it works. They have nothing to keep them alive. They're just gonna, even if it takes a while, slowly you will kill them because they don't have any of that sustain coming in. Pretty simple concept. Uh, Other than that, actually, this video is shorter than I thought it'd be. But other than that, there's not a lot of things left I could cover. Most of the things left would be like individual, like one-on-one like melee fights, and that comes down to like a lot of different things, which is, I don't really want to go over that. I really want to go over general concepts that I think, because I mean, some of the tips I've given will help, but I think for the most part, you just want to try to keep these things in mind while you're playing. I don't expect you to watch this video and then go be an insane player after this, right? Like, that's not what this video is going to do. I'm just trying to set you guys up to keep some of these concepts in mind whenever you're playing, to potentially learn things or even try things out, because that's what it's all about. I try to give you the information that you then go use yourself, to put yourself in a better position to play the game better. Just how it works. I can't make you a better player. I can just try to give you the information to help you make you a better player. That is all I can do. But anyways, with that being said, I think it sums it up for this video. Like I said, there are some other things I could cover, but for the most part, I think these are the most important things. I've been trying to think of more things to put in here. However, I couldn't really think of anything else. Even like getting to the point of like front to back to fronting, that was a bit, out of touch with the other stuff. However, I still think it is like valuable to know. But, if I'm, once again, if you guys think I missed anything that you would like me to cover, feel free to leave it in the comments. I'll probably do it in a separate video because I will obviously make more videos on PvP stuff because, it's what I do. But, anyways, thank you guys for watching, and, thank you, remember, that was stupid. Anyways, like I said, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm close to 2,000 subscribers, which is pretty awesome. But, as always, until next time, I will catch y'all later. Peace.